What's been going on, man?
Just work, everyday life,
Yeah?
chilling. You? Any big
Wh-
news?
What'd you do last night? You were about 2 hours late today.
Yeah, I got really drunk last night.
Did you?
Yeah, I drank a bunch of Happy Dads and watched hockey all night with Alex and her friend Anna. She's a cool person to talk to.
Yeah.
She has a bunch of controversial opinions and stuff like that.
Is she
Which is cool.
from? She's from Hungary too.
She is from Hungary.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, which means that she's also hungry.
Yeah, all the time. No, but we were talking about abortions and stuff like that. And I guess in Hungary they're trying to pass you can't get an abortion until after 12 weeks, and they're going to make the mother listen to the heartbeat. So that's kind of crazy to think about.
I don't think I talked to you about this. What's your personal stance on abortions?
I don't know. Like there's outliers and stuff like that where people should be allowed to get abortions, but at the same time I think if you're having sex and stuff like that,
Yeah.
then you should be taking the proper precautions while you're having sex, and because ultimately what is the not the benefit, what is the overall outcome of sex, right? It's to procreate. So if you're doing it, you're supposed to be doing it for procreation, right? So if you're doing it and you don't want a kid because it feels good, then take the proper birth control route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Condoms, birth control, IEDs, or no, not IEDs. With
An IUD.
IUD.
Yep.
There's so many things that you could do before you have to get an abortion. So, but I mean, it's like the same thing where it's people say like, oh well, like if you get and you should be allowed to have an abortion. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure if you go and you get and you get pregnant from that, I mean, it's kind of like your own fault. But like you could go to the hospital and take a plan B. Take a plan B.
Hold on. It's your own fault. What if you get?
No, if you get pregnant from getting.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the same thing as like if a dude nuts in a girl, right?
Yeah.
The dude can go buy her plan B the next morning. Like if you go to the hospital, and you go to the hospital, then they're going to be like, oh, we're going to do some tests, whether this dude nutted in you or whatever he did, right? Then they're going to be like, okay, take a plan B. You're not going to get pregnant. So, there's ways to prevent getting pregnant, ultimately.
So I definitely, I can see where your logic is, but where I would sit would be, what would you do if there was some type of foreign body inside of you, right? Say you went to the Amazon and you contracted, malaria, which is a parasite.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to you, well, you got malaria because you're the one that went to the Amazon. But now you're not going to be able to treat it because it was your fault.
Right, then that's my fault. Like,
so
before you go to Africa,
but now, hold on. But now you will die of malaria because the government is going to say, hey, we perceive this as being your fault.
Yeah.
And now you're not going to be able to, get treatment because it was a decision that you put yourself in that predicament, and you have to suffer the consequences, which in your case would be death, which in some cases of women that get pregnant via rape, they also die as well because of, bad pregnancies or whatever. Like what would you say to that logic?
I would say that logic is the same thing I just said. There's precautions that you could take. So if I want to go to the Amazon and take the possibility of contracting malaria because I didn't take the right vaccines and shit like that I was supposed to take before I went over there, because when you travel into these different countries and stuff like that, there's a list of shots that you need to get. You know what I mean?
Yep. So what if you don't have access to that, malaria pills and things like that?
Why wouldn't I have access? We live in 2023.
What if you're in an area that's, I don't know, that there are no doctors available or there are no pills available for you to take?
I live in America. I can go to the doctor and get a fucking shot or get a pill. I'm not living in fucking Zimbabwe where, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's the same thing. If something like that were to happen where someone gets pregnant in that sense, you could go to the doctor, you could go to the hospital, you
Yeah.
could go take a plan B, you could do all of these things. What I'm trying to say is to wait to get an abortion until whatever time you feel like it's right because you don't want to have the baby or whatever, then I think it's like kind of fucked up.
Yeah. No, it's so kind
Because
of.
there's people that can't have babies, right? And then you have people that are using abortions as birth control. So it's like,
Yeah. No, so I'm probably more pro life than I am pro choice in the sense of if like I'm not sure what the stats are, but when it comes to you know women being, I don't want to say the R word because now I'm going to have to edit this out and it's going to take me a lot of time.
oh
We'll
yeah,
use
shit.
grape, okay? For sexual assaults in grape, it's a very low percentage of abortions of women that fall into that category. I know it's less than 10%,
Yeah.
right? What I'm against is what you said earlier is girls using abortion as a form of birth control, right?
Yeah.
Women in of it in of it by themselves, women choose who has sex and who doesn't,
Mhm.
right? I think that's, guys all around the world know that it's very difficult to get laid if you're not, the top G, as Andrew Tate would say, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say, and I'm definitely not a fan of late term abortions. Like by 20 weeks if you're pregnant or not. In
Yeah.
most cases, right? There are definitely outliers, but for the majority of women, you pretty much know that you're pregnant by the first like 15 weeks or
Yeah.
so, right? And if they're waiting, like there's some states that allow abortions up to like 32 weeks, which is like which is kind of nuts. I
Yeah.
mean, like you can give birth at 32 weeks and the baby lives on its own. Like
Yeah.
you can literally just birth it in an alley and the thing's going to live up until it gets hungry and dies of starvation or whatever. And what a lot of people don't realize is that most abortions are just births early. They induce the woman and they birth the baby, right? And then they basically just dismantle it as it's coming out. So I'm probably more pro-life, than I am pro-choice. But the idea of thinking that if a woman gets pregnant, you know, off of a grape is her fault, I definitely don't agree with that. I want to bring in Derek here. Derek lives in Illinois, in Chicago. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He's the moderator of the DA Perspective, which give him a follow. And he's a good friend of mine. We deployed, bunkered in, getting shelled out in Iraq. So he's definitely a really good friend of mine. Been friends with him now, man, probably like, I think I'm coming up on in 2029. We'll be friends for like 20 years, which is kind of crazy. So I'll go ahead and bring him on.
Yeah. So like, first shout out to the kind words that Jeff just said. I appreciate that. Actually, I was telling my wife the other day. So I'm not I don't really like, what's the word? I really don't like pump myself up with like, oh man, you're killing it, you're doing great, like all these things. I kind of just go through the motions, and so every now and again, when I'm stopped by someone else sharing what they see of me, I really appreciate it. So thank you for your words with that, in terms of what I'm doing as of late in my life. Yeah. So as Jeff alluded to, 2009, we met in a far off place, and we did these things, and then we've kind of just been connected ever since. And so that's pretty fulfilling in terms of my human experience with other people in life. So I like those kind of relationships. So outside of my connection with Jeff, I grew up in San Antonio when I was younger, and also here in Chicago, and then progressed through life. Did the military thing, did the university thing. I'm a double demon. Graduated from DePaul undergrad after I left the military. I did like PR and advertising and information systems, so like kind of two things. Then I ended up working for a little bit at Oracle, and Oracle just wanted me to color inside one box, and I was like, that's it, I'm bored, I'm gonna go to grad school. So then I ended up getting an MBA from DePaul as well, and then shortly thereafter I started Philomathy, which is a marketing agency that I operate now, in large part with the help of my wife. And I've recently invested in two businesses. Outside of that, I have a learning center in San Antonio where I partnered with my brother and his wife. We also franchised into that. It's called Best Brains Learning Center. It's about 150 locations across the United States and Canada. So education has always been something that's like important to me. And I guess if you don't understand like philomathy, like what you see behind me, philomathy is kind of like when I found the word and what it meant, I was just like, whoa, that's it. Um, Philosophy is about knowing. Philosophers claim to know why something is, like they have an explanation, right? Whether it's true or not, right? And it's open to debate in a lot of instances. Philomathy is the antithesis of that. It's like we don't care about knowing. We have a lifelong love of learning, and that's what I realized that's my natural state. I just learn. I continue to learn. I'm enthralled with the idea of consuming new information and continuously working towards what I perceive to be an ultimate death, and having a blast along the way because I'm continuing to like progress and learn new things and change my ideas and all that stuff. So that's why the Learning Center thing was a kind of a good fit because it's education based, and I dig it. I dig education. So then I also just opened a restaurant recently here in Chicago, Pita Pita Mediterranean Grill. I'm also the first franchisee of that brand. And I'm thankful that a family member who is the franchisor has trusted me and allowed me to, to enter into this business alongside of everything that him and the rest of my family and other really important team members outside of bloodline family have been able to build. So, in large part, that's it. I'm just here. I'm just a dude.
Very cool, man. So very cool.
Do my best.
Yeah. The so what's your take on Patrick's what do you think is about abortion and how if a girl gets pregnant off of grape is not her fault?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I guess like, so from my understanding, Patrick, you said that a lot of the situational circumstances is choice, meaning like you mentioned if someone decides to have sex, they have to understand that it's their responsibility to protect themselves, right, as they enter into it. So if they're not fornicating with the intention of procreating, they need to be in control, right? And they need to make what you deem to be the right decision to, have some form of contraception to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I also want to say that I'm not saying that if someone gets graped, it's their fault. I'm saying that for them to, get pregnant, then...
Right. No,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Okay. I just wanted to make that clear.
So follow me there. So when you get raped...
grape.
It's...
Use grape. The
grape.
Fruit.
Sorry. When unfortunate assault of that nature occurs, I feel like with a certain degree of confidence, I can say that it's never the choice of the person who's being like afflicted, right?
Yeah, correct.
So in contrast to the previous remarks about the act of like sex in whatever form, right? This person was not choosing to be a part of this thing that happened. So if another person or another form of life or potential life or emerging life or however we want to explain it, right, is created because of something that this person didn't agree to, right? I don't believe that person should be forced to, for the rest of their life, have to be a part of that, right? Especially if we have, like as humans in the progression of humanity, we have ways now to kind of reverse things that otherwise, we would have had to deal with in different ways, throughout history. Do you know what I mean? Like focusing on.
I want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
To that. So, say you are in a city and a gang shooting happens, right? And then you get shot, but you don't go to the hospital. Whose fault is it that you end up, potentially dying? Because is it not your fault? Because yes, obviously it's not your fault that you got shot, but it's your fault that you decided not to go to the hospital to seek out treatment.
I mean, if again, it comes down to choice, right? It's like your choice if you want to prevent death or preserve your life, right?
Right. So it's like
Even
the same instance that when like a sexual assault happens. It's like you either you go and seek help or you don't. You know.
So
right,
it's
but you
kind of
still get
like
to
so it's kind
decide.
of like what a consequence is for an inaction, right? Because taking an action or taking an inaction both have consequences. So I think what Patrick
Right.
is trying to say is that this horrible thing happened to you and you're taking an inaction to prevent anything further, right? So aside from just, being pregnant, but AIDS, HIV, STDs and stuff like that, if you are in an unfortunate, thing where this thing happened to you and you don't get checked out and you die of
HIV or
herpes
whatever.
or AIDS or whatever, I think what
I
Patrick
don't
is
think you
trying
can
to
die from
say,
herpes, by the way.
well, yeah, I'm just saying,
Pretty sure you can't. Yeah.
I think that Patrick is trying to make an argument that you not doing what you're supposed to do and going to the doctor to make sure that you don't have AIDS and if you die of that, is that the person that grapes you fault or is that your fault for not getting treatment?
Maybe I was a little bit confused. So, are we talking about abortion, or are we talking about like choice in general in terms of how to respond to a sexual assault?
Oh well, I mean, it started off as abortions, but I mean, we can go in whichever
Yeah. So
direction. You know what I mean?
my comments were
Yeah.
strictly about abortion,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
to
yeah, for
respond to you,
sure.
Jeff, about what you just said, yeah, there is a degree of like, I guess, self-determination or something to that effect with anything that happens to you in your life, good or bad, right? Like you, for the most part, have a opportunity to respond to something, even if like what has happened is not of your choice, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I want to be incredibly sensitive about what we're talking about because that's what it deserves, right? Our minds, the human mindset, even the strongest person, the most stoic, on point person, can be thrown off by a traumatic event, right? And in the moment, and even the moments shortly thereafter, or even for the long term, make decisions based upon that traumatic experience that maybe under different circumstances they would not have made, right? So it sounds like kind of y'all might have been talking about someone having been assaulted and then not going and getting care thereafter in ways that we or some people would say, well, this is what you have to do if this happens to you, right? So I don't want to fault someone for not doing that. I don't want to say, well, you made the choice not to go to the doctor and figure out what's going on, right? Like, again, trauma affects humans in different ways, and I think like empathy and understanding as the foundation of judgment, because we're sitting here as three dudes in a room like talking about judgment of what primarily we've been talking about women. We haven't really been focusing on sexual assault towards men, right?
Yeah, because I feel
it's
like
like-
it doesn't really happen that much.
Well, it definitely
It
does.
does, but like it doesn't get talked about. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it doesn't get the same traction as it would for a female.
So I think what I would say is I think that it's unfair for the unborn child to not have a choice in this, right? Derek's talking about, hey, we're just three dudes talking about women's rights, right? So if and the whole sexual assault thing aside, abortion in general, right? If I'm having consensual sex with my girlfriend, wife, fiance, whatever, and she decides to get an abortion without my knowledge, that is completely okay in our society. Even though we did what we had to do as men to essentially be selected for a reproductive opportunity for this woman, right? It's very difficult to get selected by a woman, right? And a lot of that has to do with genetics and the biology of what we want to do as men, essentially, is to make sure that our genes go on to the next, generation, right?
Do you think we're still that primal?
I do. I
mean,
think
we're sitting here
I think
upright, having these conversations with these words that are
I
like, top
absolutely
tier, right?
100% believe that we have genetic hardwiring in us that dates back to the beginning of man, for sure.
Right, and I agree with that. But
Yeah.
do you believe that we are still as heavily affected by those genetic urges.
110%. Yep.
Really?
I would
Yeah,
would
so I
100%
mean
do.
that's like it. Yeah,
Do you
I
not
don't
think
agree
that?
with that. I
Like
don't agree with that in large part because right,
yeah.
we're so advanced, like even intellectually, right? Like monogamy, for instance. Take monogamy, right? Our genetic instinct is to do it all, right? Takes me 9 seconds to impregnate. Takes this person 9 months for gestation, right? So theoretically, in one day, I could help repopulate the world, right? Every day, multiple, right? So, but when we look at how monogamy is the norm in society, I use that as a modern day example to contrast what you just said, right? Yeah, despite our natural urges, humans by and large have made the decision to fight oftentimes what that natural urge is, right? As men or just people in relationships, regardless of orientation, monogamy is the expectation for the most part, right? And so, you know, we have to control ourselves. As a man, as I'm a man, I have to control myself. I have to control my natural human urges. So, yeah, no,
Correct,
like, yeah, I feel like we've come
exactly.
a lot
And
farther.
that natural human urge that you just, said is the genetic hardwiring of our caveman ancestors. My great 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 great
Right.
great great grandfather that fought off super freaking mammoths,
Right.
right, is the same
Holy
genetic
mammoth.
hardwiring that's in me, right?
Yeah.
Right, but we can control it now. They couldn't control it back then, right? Like it was lawless. This shit was crazy back then, right? I'm talking
Yeah, but I feel like that's
like
just
the,
like
I admitted-
society as a whole. Like we're all growing as society, so like we're learning different things. Like monogamy, for example, right? Like back in the day, you watch like Game of Thrones, right? Everybody's just fucking everybody. But like now, it's like you have your wife and you have that one person. So like there's you fight for your love for her, and she fights for your love for you, right? Like that's why I think like sex as like a whole is very intimate, and that it's like to be like monogamous with one person is like there's a difference between having sex and fucking, right? Like having sex is making love, fucking is going out and being at a club, finding a random girl and just bringing her home and blowing her back doors in. So I think like to for us to talk about like back then, I think like the times are just different, honestly.
I don't think anyone on this panel is like a forensic anthropologist that actually knows what it was like to live back in the caveman days, to be honest. And I definitely know that being monogamous in a successful marriage is the key for being successful in our society, right? If you look at children that wind up as, strippers and degenerates and stuff like that, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like strippers because, I love them. No, like what I'm saying is like in for your children, for your offspring to be successful, and the data shows this clearly, both the man and the woman are in a happy marriage and the kids are brought up in that type of household, right? If you look at school shooters, 93% of them came from
Broken households.
like fatherless households specifically, right? So it's like without the man and the woman in the house, right? And that's what monogamy is, kind of what I think our guest is saying, is that like we're fighting our urges from the whole caveman days, right? And I think that's kind of where we're at now. I mean,
but what I was trying to say is like we're not like I don't believe that we're allowed to use our primal instincts as an excuse for stupid decision making, right? Because if we can make the decision, I was using monogamy as an example of how our brain over brawn maybe, or I don't know how to, right? But brain power over like conscious decision making brain power over natural instinct urge brain power, if that makes sense, and body, right? So you being mindful of that moving forward and to make better decisions about humanity. And one of the things that you said about monogamy and being the best like solution and whatnot, that to me is situational to this point of time in human history, because before we had 8 billion people in the world, we didn't have, right, as many people as we had. And when you're talking about villages and tribes, or these rural areas where the amount of people that were part of your thing was directly correlated to the sustainability, longevity, and future existence of your people. There was numbers, right? So there was leaders who would have multiple. Whether you call them wives or not, they would have multiple women that they would impregnate, right? At the same time, because it was just a numbers game, So at that time, monogamy was not the best solution towards human existence and living a good life, and going through every day, I guess.
So, like, that was back in the day, though, right? So, like, we were trying to populate the planet, and an argument can be made that the only reason why we have 8 billion people is because of modern medicine, right? And if you look at
living longer,
exactly,
but also, there's just sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, my guy.
oh, no. I'm just saying that it's completely different times, and guys and girls, we have different reproductive strategies, right? It's like it 100% is, right?
Jeff?
I mean, when I was younger, and really all I was trying to do was just kind of get laid. That's definitely 100%, on the genetic side of the house, right? And now that I'm married and I have kids and stuff, like, I have completely different, kind of, what's the word? Like, a paradigm, essentially. But what I'm saying is that, guys, it's our job to basically spread our seed as far and wide as we possibly can, right? Because of what you said earlier about, you just want to bang as many people as you can, right? Women, it's their job to select the best suitor, right, to sleep with, essentially, right? So it's like all guys are trying to spread their seed as far and wide as they can to all women, right? And it's the women's job to select the best one. You know what I mean?
So you're using words, and I want to I want to give you an opportunity to help me better understand.
Yeah.
Is it my job to spread my seed, and is it their job to select, or is it just the choice that people now, because again, our consciousness is elevated and we get to make a choice on whether we abide by our natural instincts or not?
It is your job as a man to ensure that your genetic code gets passed on to the next generation, essentially.
So respond to this. Dude, I don't want to have kids. I don't want kids. I will not spread my seed on this earth. So
what's your
am I
logic?
not doing my job? Is my existence here less effective towards anything?
So I would
Because
say,
I don't,
yeah. So
right.
so I would say, I think that like, that's your personal choice, and we have 8 billion people, and I'm not judging you for it. You have to think that your caveman ancestors dodged tigers and mammoths, and they survived, just for you to make the choice now in a soft, like, society to say, hey, I don't want to spread the seed of those men before you onto the next. Like, I don't think it's selfish, but I think other people with this same mindset that doesn't understand our society would say that that's a selfish choice.
So I'm glad you said that, right? Because 2 things. I don't believe my ancestors even fucking gave a shit about me. They didn't know, right? They didn't know me. They knew that there was going to be other people. They didn't know that it was Derek Philomathy Marketing, Derek P2P. They didn't know. They again, it wasn't like, I'm going to dodge this fucking tiger or whatever, right? Because in, 20 generations from now, my grandchild won't be able to exist, right? That I don't agree with that.
So
in the same sense, though, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to touch on as well. That's directly in line with this questioning, this conversation. You mentioned about the child not having a choice in being born or not, right?
correct.
I often genuinely struggle with the idea that no one asked me if I wanted to be here. So by force, I was thrust into this world of fucking chaos and vile things and just, just fucking shit, right? And so in contrast to your assertion for kind of like a pro-life leaning thing, like, how come there's always the opposite side. Like some people would, yeah. If some of these people had a choice, or babies, or fetuses, zygotes, whatever, maybe some of them would choose not to. And
No,
then
I mean,
where does that argument go?
I think I think that's a really good point on the other side of the spectrum. I think it's under the assumption that like we're alive and we don't know what it's like to not be alive. So you can assert, you know, basically that a living thing wants to be living because that's what makes us, you know. So I'd say I would, me as a living being on planet Earth, I would make the assumption that if you have the potential to be a living thing, you would want to.
Shit, man.
Would you?
I
Would you?
I want to
would
live.
you-
I don't want
I'm
to
sorry,
die.
go ahead.
You know what I mean? Like, I like
I can
living
barely
life.
hear him.
You know?
By the way,
You can't hear him.
yeah. Turn his mic up a little bit. I can hear you pretty good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was saying, like I don't know, dude. Like, I want to live. You know, there's so much. Yes, there's so many ugly and heinous and hateful things going on in this world, but like, there's also so many beautiful things going on. What as too? You know what I mean?
agree.
Like,
But
one of the most beautiful things is like having a child, right? Like that's like some people say like you don't know how to actually love something until you can love your own child, until you can hold your own child. And like I think that's like one of the most beautiful things in this world is being able to have a child. So, I think and like not only that, but like I moved from Connecticut to Colorado. I've never seen melons like this in my life. So it's like yes, there are so many hateful and ugly and disgusting things that go on in this world, but there's also so many beautiful things that some people don't even get to experience.
So hold on. I will say that Derek, it would be a shame if you didn't reproduce because Derek is honestly one of the most centered, unbiased, smart people, and I'm not trying to like put you on a pedestal or whatever, but it's true.
Mhm.
And there's so many people on the planet that are just sheep, man. And I think that that's like a genetic thing. And for you not to reproduce, I feel like you're doing human species a disservice.
yeah. So I've thought about. I appreciate that. I really do. I've grappled with that. And you know what? And this is how I feel. I genuinely feel that. How do I say this? So a large part of me, honestly, like the entirety of me, I don't have that genetic urge. Like when I think when you both think about having children, it like makes you feel a certain way, right? And it compels you to do that or want to do that. I don't know if I'm sorry, your brother's name is Patrick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat. I don't know if you have kids yet or not, but
Nope.
like that feeling that you guys are talking about, bro. I don't have that at all.
See,
Right.
but you do
And so-
have the
hold on,
feeling.
wait.
Hold on.
Hold on, wait.
Yeah,
hold on,
yeah,
wait.
yeah. Go, sorry.
Sorry, hold on, wait. So I've thought about that, right? Like, how do I try to leave some form of positive impact on the world if it's not by way of a child that is of my flesh? And also in the same vein, like some people have kids and they're shitty, right? And their dad's like great or their mom's fucking awesome, and you're like, how did this kid turn out to be just a fucking rotten egg, right? So there's no guarantee that anything that I produce would be kind of resembling of me, right? I would obviously do my best to share, me. I think that I have a greater possibility of being more impactful to the broader public by not having my own children. And I mean that because like I've been able to build all these businesses and create these jobs and interact with all these people because I don't have that and as awesome and beautiful as it is, and I get it, I'm not against it, right? But I don't have those time conflicts. I don't have, right, that responsibility, because that's a big responsibility.
So I would say that I definitely respect your decision to do that for sure, and that's your right, and all that stuff. I would say that there's two things that I want to unpack, and then I want to move on, right? Because we're just gonna go in a big circle. So what I would say is, first thing is that urge that you have to bang other chicks. That's 100% your genetic feeling of wanting to reproduce, right? Like that's what that is. And number two, I think that if you don't have kids and you're 70, because I think our life expectancy is going to be in the 90s by the time we get that. You're going to have Like you're gonna have your retirement, and people are gonna start dying around you. And I think that most old people that I know, they're glad that they had kids, and they wish that they had more. So I think that people that decide not to, I think I'm predicting that it's going to be a deep regret. That, well, I mean, you're a guy, so you can have kids, you know, up until you're in your 70s or 80s, right? I mean, granted, as long as your wife is okay with it. But
right?
well, I'm sorry, what's that?
I only got one nut left. I had cancer, so my
So-
sperm count's lower. So I may have less of a chance. I don't even know if I can fucking have kids, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
didn't bank my sperm or anything. I just let it ride. So two things, and then I know you want to move on. One, everything that we've been talking about so far has come down to choice and the choices that people make, right?
Facts.
And as you continue on during this podcast and tomorrow, think about how you're making these decisions and how you're kind of flip-flopping and being hypocritical in a lot of instances by always ending up with like, it's okay to have choice for this, but it's not okay to have choice for this, right? And how you connect that to other people outside of yourself. You know what I mean? So, you know, that, because that's what I'm hearing a lot of, right?
So you're saying that we're both saying that it's okay to have choice with certain things, but not choice with other things. So I would say to that I think it could be hypocritical, but I think it depends on the choices that we're making, right? So, and I'm not saying that I'm like prescribing anything as far as like what other people should do, right? I mean, I do
Sure.
think that you should have kids if you have the ability to, but
Right.
I'm also saying that depending on the choice that you're trying to make or that you wish that you could make and can't or whatever, I'm basically just saying, you know, as long as you do the right thing, I think you should be okay. And I personally don't believe in taking personal choice away from anyone. I would prefer it if people didn't abort their kids. And I can show a whole bunch of data and facts on kind of how that impacts the black community specifically, right? If you look at on a map, which Derek, you actually said to me earlier, you know, if you can tie it into what we're talking about, if you look at on a map where all the abortion clinics are, they're all in, you know, low income, people of color, you know, type of, you know, of those types of,
Communities.
yeah. And where are all the fertility clinics? I got like 6 by my house right now within like 5
Yeah.
miles. And you can also argue that if you look at all the abortions across, you know, the U.S., like a huge majority of them, like over 70% are of people of color, essentially. So if they, so if people of color never had any abortions, we would have, I want to say, I can't remember, like, but it's like something like 250 million more votes, or maybe it was 250,000 per neighborhood. I'll have to pull up the map and I can do the analysis on the podcast so that people will understand. But the actual voting power of those communities is so much lower because abortion is rampant essentially in those types of communities. What would you say to that?
Yeah. Okay. So you went somewhere with it that I didn't expect you to go, which is cool. But it's interesting. So two things. I think that like the outside of the abortion rate in impoverished communities or communities of color, yeah, and again, like confirmation bias, right? Like looking for data that confirms your biases towards something, right? Like you could look at the data and come to the conclusion that, oh, abortion clinics and the prevalence of them is part of the hindrance of the progression of these communities, right? But in contrast, you could also say to what degree, if any, in relation to job opportunities, educational opportunities, and those kind of things that could ultimately be seen as more like a greater percentage of the impact of the prevention of the progression. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hold
Yeah.
on. Give me 1 second. Hold
yeah.
on. Pat, can you I'm going to send you a link. Is that tied to your
This
to
is
your phone?
Alex's.
Okay, so if I text that to Alex,
Yeah,
will you be able to access the link on that?
I should be able to.
Sorry, Derek, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm trying to do this production thing. If
So-
if I send the link to Alex's email, will you be able to get it?
I should be able to. Can you send it to our Instagram? Or you can't do
No.
that? No, dude, it's alright. Just go on with what we're doing and
Sorry.
figure it out next time.
I'm sorry,
That's
Derek.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out next time.
Oh, I'm good. I'll pick it right back up.
Okay.
So did you hear the first part?
Yeah.
Did you hear the first part that I said?
Yep.
Okay. So the second part is you're also assuming that had all these 250 million people still been around, that they would vote in a certain way, and that's also not fair to say, right? And you said voting power, but you said voting power with the assumption that they would vote in a certain way, right? And that's not fair, right? Because people are not a monolith of any form, of any community. So again, right, you're giving valid reasons to support your support of a more pro-life leaning opinion. And I just want to kind of challenge them with like kind of
Yeah.
more like,
So-
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say look at the black vote for the last 50 years and see if they voted left or right, and at what percentage.
Yeah, but even still, like, it.
No, I mean like.
You're saying
yeah.
look it up?
Yeah. Actually, look it up because I want to see like. Derek might have a
No,
point
I
here.
do
Yeah.
look it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're not a monolith, man. Nobody's a monolith, you know? It's not 100%. No community is 100%.
Yeah, no. I totally agree with that. But those types of communities would have way more voting power, right?
I would also say, how many people fucking vote, dude? Like, it's like,
Patrick doesn't vote. Patrick doesn't vote, and I've been on his ass about it for forever.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm all for like hypotheticals and for a cautious degree of assumption when decision making, but I try to be as rational as possible and look at the world for what it is, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
like the reality is, of those 250 million people, you might have got a couple million to vote, right? And would that move the needle? And so is that a big enough reason for me to feel pro-life way? Like, because that's what you're using as a supportive theory, right? For your decision and
Yeah.
your leaning.
All right, Pat. So what do you got?
Hold on.
I just saw the graph up there. That one right there.
Okay. There you go.
All right. So what does it say? Man, see,
And who's the first? Who is the source?
this
of
is
this data?
this is Wikipedia. Looks like.
No Pew search.
Oh, the Pew
Pew
Research
Research
Center.
So key facts about Black eligible voters in 2022, written by Mohammed Moslimiani.
No, this is September 13th, 2016.
Talking to the mic, please.
I have October 12th, 2022.
Okay.
Research
Okay.
Center.
Do you want to share your screen?
What am I on Zoom? All right, let me see. Host disabled participant screen
God,
sharing.
I didn't do that. It always does that to me.
So this is from
I think this is
92
just
to
eligible. Let me see if it shows
2016.
how they voted before I pull this in.
Okay, so I want to move on to what's his name, Pat? The guy that was beat by the cops.
Tyree Nichols.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to find a quick video that
Yeah.
we can watch just to view this beat down a little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what Derek has to say because he has a law enforcement background like me.
I mean, I don't have a law enforcement background, but I think to beat the fuck out of somebody while they're handcuffed is terrible. But also don't run when you get pulled over. So it's like, I don't know. There's two sides to it, I guess. Don't run. Don't beat the shit out of them. They're both in the wrong, technically. So, I mean, either way, it's fucking terrible. Nobody should die at the hands of a police. Like, everybody should be
All right,
afforded a
I got
trial.
the video.
You know what I mean?
Here we go.
Human life. Tonight, Americans are reacting with sadness and disgust at the video showing the police beating that ultimately killed Tyree Nichols. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kimberly Gill.
And I'm Karen Drew in for Devin tonight. The footage out of Memphis, Tennessee.
Wording yesterday were charged with murder at protests around the country, including here in Detroit. Demonstrators have honored requests. But first, here's NBC's.
So it looks like I'm not really getting good image here, but it looks like what happened was like it was an abuse of the use of force model, right? And I know Derek is definitely an expert on this, like me, because it got beat into our heads while we were in the military, right?
Yeah.
Both me and Derek were security forces, so like basically the military police for the Air Force, essentially, right? And there's this thing called the use of force model or the use of force continuum, I think is what they call it now. I'm not sure if they changed the model within security forces or not, but essentially, you're allowed to go one step above what the subject's actions are, not the subject's attitude, which I bitch at cops at this for this all the time. It's like, you are not supposed to respond based on my attitude. I can be freaking the fuck out calling you an asshole, and you're legally not allowed to use force because of my attitude.
Yeah.
If I can be the nicest guy ever and pull out a fucking hammer, oh hey man, just come here. I just want to give you a little knock on the head. That is warranted for, hey, I'm gonna fucking tase you or even shoot you in that. Like, I'm like 6'3", 6'4", 225. If I'm coming after you with a hammer, you are 100% in your right as a cop to fucking blast me, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have someone handcuffed, right, you've already deployed the use of force model, right? I can't remember if that's step 1 or 2 or whatever, right? But it's like a hands-on type thing. To fucking pepper spray somebody, to tase them, to fucking kick them, punch them, not only while they're handcuffed, but while they're on the ground. All those cops deserve to be in jail fucking immediately. And you, Pat, with a non-law enforcement background, and Derek, I want to get to you in a second. You, Pat, with a non-law enforcement background, how do you view that, right? You said, well, you should have stopped and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had my fair share of run-ins with the law enforcement. And, some people would say it's, I just think like, okay, you get pulled over, what should you do? You should put your hands on the steering wheel. You should roll down your window.
Just be compliant.
Just be
is what
compliant.
you're saying. Yeah,
yes. Hey, okay. Whether you did something wrong or you didn't do something wrong, it's even easier if you did nothing wrong, right? It's just like, okay, there's been times where like I had weed in the car, right? Like, the officer's like, hey, do you mind stepping out of the vehicle? No, I don't mind stepping out of the vehicle. Oh, do you have any drugs in the car? Yes, I have drugs in the car. I have weed in the car. You know what I mean? There's been times where I've told the police officer, yes, I have weed in the car, and the cop literally was like, okay, are you smoking right now? No, I'm not smoking right now. It's for later. He's like, okay, here you go. Take your weed back. Like if you just do what the cop asked you to do and you're compliant with what the police officer is asking of you, I mean, in my personal experience, everything has gone the way that, it should have, So I think just be compliant in that scenario, and I think you're good. Like, there's literally been times, like I said, I've had drugs on me, and
Pat, I get it. What I think the argument is here is, do you think that this guy would have been pulled over the way that he was? Which, if like, I have the raw video here, and I'm going to show it here in a second. If the guy was a different color, would they have gone up to would they have done a traffic stop with their guns drawn? And me and Tim, actually, we got pulled over with guns drawn, essentially. And I'm like, dude, why is your gun drawn right now?
Mm-hmm.
And, it wound up being this whole thing where, like, the vehicle, I had a brown Infiniti QX80 with Colorado plates going through Nevada because we were driving out to Tahoe. And allegedly, we thought that we were, like, drug and gun runners or whatever for whoever, right? So they pulled us over, guns drawn, all this other stuff, right? If you look at the video on the actual traffic stop, which I haven't gotten any information on this yet, and I'm going to play it right now. You can see that the cop, he gets out of the car, boom, guns drawn pretty much immediately. Why did he get pulled over like that? Why is it not, oh, well, walk up, hey, sir, give me your driver's license?
Pull up his fucking record. Why don't you pull up his record? See what he had prior.
I don't think, well.
Is it a stolen vehicle? No. So run the tags.
Well, I'm sure
run
they
the
did.
tags,
Well, Pat,
it comes
Pat, that is not a good argument because even if you run the tags, right?
Okay.
Say I'm driving your car.
Right.
So just because so the cop is pulling over me driving your car, that he's gonna no.
What do you mean?
I will say though, I think there was some kind of like I think he ran from them in the car first.
Did he?
So I think that may be why they're drawn here. Again, I'm also like trying to piece this together too, right? Because it's only been incrementally released. But, you know, I don't want to preemptively say there was no justification for having guns drawn when they initially approached this video that you're showing. I don't know what the precursor was to this. But, Pat, your assertion, no, it is not okay to assume who the person is when driving a car. Like that's not probable cause to use an escalation of force. Because I think someone with a record is driving a car. No, that's not a real thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, if I was I'm not a cop, but I feel like if I run someone's tags and they are, you know, they have a bunch of shit on their record, right? Like, aggressive, like they've, you know, gone to jail for hitting police officers, like, you know, like shit like that. Like, and there's a record showing that.
I think it's okay to approach the car a little bit more cautiously.
Caution.
Okay,
But
maybe you don't have
to,
to
but
have
to
your gun
approach
drawn,
the car with
but-
your gun drawn, like that,
But yeah,
you
just can't
drawing
assume
your
that
gun,
that person's the one driving the car, though. Like that's just not
like
that's
you,
just not reasonable
like
decision making.
you, like
right?
you
Like,
can
it just doesn't
sue.
make sense.
So
you can't assume that the tag owner is the person that's operating that
Yeah.
vehicle.
So
Yeah.
so you can sue cops personally. I don't know how it is in the state of Illinois, but in Colorado, you can sue cops personally for abusing the use of force model. So if I'm walking down the street and the cop tases me and he doesn't have the right to, I can sue that cop. You pulling your gun out of your holster, you even touching your gun, is considered an escalation of force, right? So in reality, even if this guy didn't die, he would have a solid case to sue the cops for civil rights, use of force model, policy violations, all kinds of crazy stuff. So just pulling your gun out, I can't remember what step that was. It's got to be close to 3 or 4, right there.
Right. Okay, but let me ask you this. Right?
Yeah, it's like
where
3
did-
or 4. Because dude, that's right before deadly force.
Correct.
Use of deadly force. So that's like step 4. Right. Like there is no like, and that's the thing too, right? Like I feel like you and I having gone through it in the way that we did in terms of the training, you know, like they tell us in the military, like you're not going to be able to watch movies about the military ever again. Like it just, your experience actually doing it in real life is going to destroy every fictional representation in like Hollywood and stuff like that, right? So in the same sense, right, I think that a lot of people's perception of the reality of policing is flawed in like a Hollywood sense, right? This whole like, well, just pull your gun out, people will stop and then put your gun away, right? Like it doesn't, like that's not a real thing, right? Like,
Or the one that gets me, dude, just shoot him in the leg. I'm like, are you fucking
Wait, hold on.
insane?
moving target, shoot him in the leg.
Can I say something?
Or like, you know,
Like,
you
yeah.
shoot the tires and the car blows up.
Like
you
it's
know,
like I don't think it's right, like what happened, but like we also have to like, I think, take an account of where.
Say it again.
Where.
Say it. Say it.
Say what?
You say because he ran, right?
No,
He
no, no,
shouldn't
no,
have
no,
ran.
no, no. I think we need to take an account of where the actual location of this shit is happening. Like, do you like?
does that mean?
Bro, let me tell you something. If I was a cop in Fairhaven, Connecticut, and some dude runs, like, you have to make the assumption that either he has something on him or, other words. Okay, maybe it's fucked up that I say that, but I don't know, dude. Like, when
Yeah.
you're in a gang-ridden city, like, and you're a cop,
yeah.
you have to understand
so-
that, like,
well,
the
but that's-
odds
so-
are against you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
but
just the way I think.
That's the thing, right? Is like I think this is the problem with policing is you're making circumstantial assumptions instead of treating everybody the same way, right? Like honestly, I assumed that everybody that I met while I was on duty was capable of killing me. And so I went into every single interaction while I was on, and honestly, even when even fucking now, every day, I assume the same from almost everybody that I meet, right? That it could always happen, or that this action could be a reality, or whatever, right? So it would be flawed judgment for a police officer on duty to assume that just because this is a 93-year-old woman driving a car that she's not going to do them any harm. This lady could just as easily pull out a revolver and not like being pulled over and just fucking shoot the cop, right? Just like everybody would assume that other types of people, right, would be more prone to those behaviors, right? So I really think that's a big problem with policing is those discriminative assumptions, and then they change the way that they approach different situations instead of being fair and level-headed and treating everyone the same. Second thing that I did want to say it. You mentioned, and I was reading about this too, right? This idea that, well, if you just comply with the cops, or if you wouldn't have ran, you know? But that's the whole fucking point, right? Like when we were in the military, we weren't allowed to succumb to stupid shit, stupid urges. We were expected to be the better person because we had the badge and we had the gun. It was our responsibility to, in spite of whatever our personal feeling was in that moment, the guy could have kicked me in the nuts, he could have spit in my mother's face, doesn't matter. There was a responsibility that we had to uphold civility, integrity, and professionalism in spite of the worst circumstances. And so it is expected that police are going to interact with the general public and have to pursue subjects at some point in time. So in no way do I accept the reasoning that in any form that this happened to this individual because he ran. Him running is outside of the fact that he was brutally beaten by these dudes. They fucking held him. They held his hands behind his back while another guy fucking swung on him. Another guy kicked him so hard he hurt his leg. They bent an ass baton, right? Like again, and I'm gonna give you a really good example. And this isn't a race thing, okay? I'm just giving you an example. Do you remember when they bought Dylan Roof Burger King after he killed all those people? Right?
I don't know what
That's
that
what
is.
I mean by like
Wait, Dylan Ruth, that was
responding
the.
to shit.
Was that the? That was
the church.
the
he,
church.
He went into the church and he killed 9 people,
yeah.
and then they bought him Burger King. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is I would challenge you to try to not let yourself fall into the reasoning, right? So like is the reason that this guy got beat is because he ran, like he could have prevented it.
Oh no,
right?
I don't think there's I don't think there's any I don't think there is a way to say like what they did was okay, right? Like I don't think, you know, by him not running or by him running, was he gonna get the shit? Like, was he gonna die? No, I think that like in his situation, those cops just did what they did. You know what I mean? Like, there's no there's no like reasoning for them to do that, right? Like, I don't think
I would say
what they did was wrong or right or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but I don't think by him not running would he have been alive. Like, I think what was going to happen was going to happen, you know? Ultimately.
So what I would say is, and I'm going to argue for the cops here just to play the devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say that it's fucked up that they fucking killed this kid, and all those cops deserve the electric chair, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But to play the other side, I would say, and I'll ask Derek this too, is do you think the guy would have died if he complied? If as soon as he got dragged out of the car, they said, lay on your stomach and put your hands behind your back, do you think that guy would be dead today, Derek?
But that's what I'm saying. I think you guys keep trying to like hypothesize about things and make assumptions instead of like looking at the world for what it is right now.
So you think he would have still died?
But that I shouldn't even have to answer that question, right? Because it doesn't change what happened, and it doesn't change what continues to happen, right? Again, the reality is you should expect non-compliance from some of the subjects that you interact with as a police officer.
Wait,
And you use
I
the-
want to ask a question. So, how many people have died from police brutality that were compliant?
I don't know.
I mean, no, it happens. Dude, like,
What's that girl's name? Brianna. Yeah. Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. They went into
Do you
the
guys
crib.
know that story?
Yeah.
Okay, so then tell me the story if you guys know it.
They got a wrong address. Shout out to the GIS person that works for that police department that they gave out the wrong address. Location's important. I'm going to get into maps later. Cops got the wrong address, right? They went into Breonna Taylor's apartment and she was like sleeping or she was disoriented somehow and they fucking shot her basically on the spot.
Yeah, like 37 times they returned fire. He had a license. He was licensed. He's licensed gun holder. He did what everyone says we're supposed to be allowed to do as gun owners, which is protect your home and yourself and your family, right? When intruders are coming in.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Breonna Taylor.
Wait, she didn't have a gun, did she?
Her boyfriend had the gun.
Her boyfriend had the gun,
So-
and from my understanding was he actually was she called the cops on him for like domestic abuse.
No, not at all. They.
Can you walk us through it? Like, because clearly I didn't realize there was a guy with a gun. But
Yeah, no, it's her boyfriend. Look, I'm gonna read you from
Yeah.
the able to be edited Wikipedia page, right? 26-year-old woman fatally shot Louisville home. 3 Metro Police Department officers from Louisville were involved with the shooting. Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was inside the apartment with her when plainclothes officers knocked on the door and then forced entry. The officers said that they announced themselves before forcing entry, but Walker said he did not hear any announcement, thought they were intruders, and fired a warning shot at them. The shot hit Mattingly in the leg. Mattingly is one of the police officers.
Wait, hold on. Who shot the warning shot? The cops?
The boyfriend
Why the fuck would you
at
shoot
the
a warning
intruders.
shot? Oh, because they were in plain clothes.
They were in plain clothes.
Oh,
They
gotcha,
just
gotcha,
busted in the
gotcha. Okay,
house in
yeah,
plain
yeah.
clothes. And it was nighttime, if I'm not mistaken.
And the
right?
police
Yeah,
allegedly
yeah, so
say,
it was
hold on, and the
12:48
police
sorry, it was
allegedly
12:48
say that they announced themselves. So that was probably a huge thing in the case of like, hey, we announced ourselves as police.
Well,
But
that's
even
their
if,
way of trying to, yeah.
but
that was
I
their way of
mean,
trying-
it,
regardless though, we're talking about use of force and again, the reaction to something, right? The reaction to like non-compliance, right? He shot 1 shot, they shot 32 in return, right?
If I get punched in the
And I get
face
it.
once, I'm knocking that motherfucker out. Like I don't like. If you shoot a gun, you should get.
Hold up.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
If you punch somebody in the face, are you not expecting to get punched in the face back?
Okay, so here's the thing, and I'm gonna tell you what police are taught.
No, I just
Because we were taught it
wait,
as
hold on,
well.
hold
No,
on.
hold
I
on.
hate how people.
You are- again,
I'm not
this
saying I
goes
hate
in-
how people, but I hate when somebody doesn't answer the question. I hate
What was
when
the question?
when someone answers a question with a question.
Well, what is your question?
If you
No,
get punched in the
I'm gonna
face,
tell you, the answer is this. The answer is no. You are not allowed to. You are only allowed.
so if
to
you
use
get
the
punched in the
level of
face, you're
force
not
necessary.
like if you
Listen.
punch someone in the face, you're not. Hold on.
You're
If
not
you
hearing-
punch someone
you're
in
not
the
letting me
face,
answer your
you're not
question.
expecting to get punched back in the face.
You're not at. Listen, I'm talking about police. You're talking anecdotally about you and your life. I'm
No,
talking
I'm-
about police.
Okay, if somebody enters my house and I shoot a gun, I'm expecting
Sure.
someone is going to return fire, right? Just like if
Sure.
I punch someone in the face, my hands are going to be up, so I don't get punched in the face. So
Correct.
now, if you punch someone in the
So-
face, do you expect to not be punched back in the face? If you shoot a bullet at somebody, are you not expecting return fire?
So again, let me answer your question, because your question is not as detailed as I would like to answer it. Okay, the answer is, again, I'm talking about police. You're just talking generally. I'm talking about police. You're only allowed to use the level of force necessary to either eliminate the threat or to de-escalate the situation. Okay? And what we were taught was, if it takes 2 bullets to stop something, you shouldn't use 32 bullets, because that's excessive force. And you're to be honest, it's up into the use of deadly force, but your intentions should always be to prevent the necessity of using deadly force, right? Or creating death. Obviously, we were taught to kill people, but again, in terms of decision making, being humans that have control over instinct, right, and professionalism and integrity and what we expect of the best, the people that have the badge and the gun, the expectation has to be more. It has to be that you do not excessively use force to de-escalate a situation. Does that make sense?
So
it's not as easy
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
someone punches
So
me in the face, I get to punch him back.
yeah,
Do you
so
know what I mean?
so let me try to explain this, okay? So what I would say is if someone comes into my like that announcement is probably one of the biggest things for me, right? If someone comes into my house in the middle of the night, I don't know what time it was, Derek, maybe you can look that up to see what time it was.
12:40 in the morning.
12:40 in the morning. If someone comes to my house at fucking almost 1 a.m. and they come into my house, whether they announce themselves as police or not, I'm probably going to fuck them up. I have no reason to expect police to be at my house. I have kids here. I have my wife here. And the whole 32 versus 2, Derek, I would probably push back on that because there are definitely circumstances like, I don't know, what if it's a sniper, right? What if you're a police force and you're in the middle of the woods and you take 2 shots from a sniper and you don't know where it is? Do you think then
Right, but
still
again,
it's still
it's circumstantial though. They were in a bedroom.
But
right?
I'm just saying,
So
I'm
there's
just
3
saying,
cops.
I'm just saying
There's 3
to make a
cops,
blatant statement that 32 versus 2 is
it was
not 1 or 2 or
One
whatever.
shot.
So if I'm on a SWAT team in plainclothes or if I'm a cop or whatever and I'm making entry, what I believe is lawful entry, right? I've announced I may be in plain clothes, I may be in a vest or whatever. In my mind, if I'm making entry and I take a shot, it's fucking game on. Someone just tried to kill me. That's what's going in my mind.
But that's what I'm saying, Jeff. Like, were you ever taught that every time you pull that trigger, you have to run through the whole magazine? We were never taught that. Not one freaking time did anyone ever say that. So like, because that's what you're saying now.
I'm not
right?
saying no. I'm not justifying the 32 in this circumstance. What I'm justifying is the fact that the boyfriend died. I don't know what Breonna Taylor. She was just lying in her bed while a SWAT team was coming in.
No, the boyfriend lived. She died.
Yeah.
So the cops killed Breonna Taylor. She was asleep, or she was like what? Like
We're asleep.
okay. So what was the police's justification as to why they killed her?
No. It's because they were returning fire to the warning shot. They were sleeping. It was 1 a.m. They were asleep. The plainclothes officers entered the home, and the guy thought it was an intruder, right? Lawful gun owner.
And they
So he
just
protected
sprayed the
himself.
room. Essentially, they just sprayed the room. So the cops.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
They just
Yes,
sprayed the room.
He shot 1 shot at them, and they fucking sprayed the
Know
room.
your target and know your backdrop. That is
That's what I'm
2
trying
of
to
the
say.
biggest things,
exactly.
right?
They killed her. She got shot 6 times
So-
because she was behind him.
She was like a friendly
You know?
fire type situation.
It was an excessive use
Essentially.
of force situation.
Right. So I'm talking like the cops didn't aim at her and shoot at her intentionally. They just didn't know
I
that
understand.
she was there.
Yeah, she was a casualty.
She was a victim of
wasn't
circumstance.
The target. They were indiscriminately shooting. Dude, it was dark in the room, and one warning shot came out. Right. To be honest, I take that back. I assume it was dark in the room. I don't know if they had like flashlights or something on. I would assume they did after entering a home in the middle of the night. But either way, yeah. Imagine being in a bedroom, and and that's what I mean, right? Like by the use of force necessary to de-escalate a situation.
What I can
So,
say.
anyways, I didn't want to.
Yeah. So what I can say to the 4 viewers that we have right now is just be compliant with the police and sue the fuck out of them later. You can really fuck over the cops in court. It's a lot easier to do. Arguing and being non-compliant and being argumentative on the scene, on the site, whatever, with a local cop could get you killed. Sue the fuck out of them later. That's what I would say.
So like I do want to agree with you, Pat, to some degree, right? Because I do agree that like when I was a kid, I used to like buck the system, and it caused me a lot of problems, right? It just made things harder. And as I got older, I realized that like I was able to kind of control situations a lot more if I kind of complied and learned the rules of the game. And like to Jeff's point, like, you know, there's an option after a unpleasant experience with police sometimes, which would be if you were genuinely wronged in some legal way that would afford you an opportunity to sue them and get some form of compensation. Then yeah, that's like 4D chess, right? I'll comply now knowingly and do whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree in some instances. Yeah, you just comply. But again, I do want to make a very distinct statement that I really dislike, and I'm not saying you're doing it like when I heard you say it, I didn't feel the vitriol and the vile nature of you saying it as I hear other people saying it.
Yeah.
Which is, well, if you just comply with the police, none of this would happen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't agree with that in any instance, because as I said, anything could happen. But yes, sometimes it would be easier for people if they just kind of went through those motions. At the same time, at what point, and this is my question to you, at what point am I allowed to push back on what I know is wrong in those instances
Like,
when interacting with the police?
what's wrong? Like you getting bopped over the head with
No,
a baton?
no.
Or-
So let me give you a scenario, Pat. Okay. What I'm going to say is you get pulled over,
Okay.
right? Cops pull you and Alex out of the car, and they start illegally searching Alex in a sexual manner.
Okay.
What are you doing? Are you going to be compliant?
Probably, because I'm not trying to get my ass beat.
But you're going to allow the police to sexually assault your...
No, I'd probably just wait for it to be over and then press charges. Every cop wears body cams now, so it's like not like you can't show that. Okay, yeah, in the moment it sucks, right? Just like I can't do anything because I know if I do something, like it's gonna end up being their word against mine, right? Like if I say, oh, he was sexually abusing my girl, and then I go over there and rock him in the jaw. Now I'm going to jail because I just fucking punched a cop.
I would say what I would do in that situation, maybe not with Heather and the kids, whatever. If it's Kara or if it's Noella and they're doing something to wrong them, those cops are probably going to die on the spot, and I'm just going to take whatever fucking,
Repercussions.
well, no, like I would hope for a jury trial and explain to the jury, which is a group of my peers, these cops were sexually assaulting my daughter, so I fucking killed them. They were child molesters and
Yeah.
they deserve to die.
I get that. But
So, but that kind of goes against your premise of just comply and you live.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, I'll give
well,
you
I
an
hope to
example.
God police officers just aren't fucking.
But they are. Some of them are legitimately.
They're what? I didn't hear it.
Oh, I said hopefully police aren't just fucking taking advantage of sexually assaulting women.
And so that's what I'm saying, right? Okay, does everyone are all cops good
No,
in your opinion?
no,
Okay.
absolutely
Yeah,
not.
and so that's where I'm saying we should be allowed to challenge them to be the best people among us in most instances, right? Because they're being trusted with like a mild judge and jury type of mentality, right? Like they can, in an instance, right or wrong, decide to take someone's life. The very thing that started this entire discussion that we've been having for however long, right? You kind of started talking about abortion and life,
Yeah.
right? And now here we are coming full circle to police and the decisions that they're making.
Yeah,
Again, I feel like choice has been the very common theme of this entire discussion.
right.
And it's kind of like, it's super important, right? Like the decisions that we make as humans.
Yeah, no, I think,
especially
like-
the
Well, hold on.
Like-
I want to ask Derek a question first, okay? I want to say,
no
Derek,
questions, please.
so what I would say is with some of these traffic stops and some of these non-compliant killings, right, where it's like you see a lot of this stuff, George Floyd, a lot of these, unnecessary shootings and killings for the police. Do you think that the communities or our community as Americans, do you think that our non-compliance is at a kind of a low bar, right? Where it's like, hey, I pulled you over for a traffic stop, step out of the vehicle. no, I'm not stepping out of the vehicle. Do you think that that's necessary? Right? Obviously, my extreme example of, hey, you know, someone's about to sexually assault a loved one, that's an extreme example. Do you think that that level of noncompliance is good for a lower level, maybe civil rights violation, like pulling someone out of the car without cause?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like we should have the right to say some shit when it's wrong, and this is a prime example. Okay, my buddy and I, we produced music previously under the moniker Purple Tokyo, right? And we just played a show at a venue in Chicago, and we were loading in the alley in the back our gear, right? So we had the cars there, and these cops came, and they were at the end of the alley, and they sat there, right? Now the alley is a one lane alley, so you know it's really hard. You can't, even if you pulled over as much as you could, you can't really get two cars through there, right? And there's no signs that say anything about active loading or unloading or anything like that. It just says no parking, right? And so the definition of parking, as far as I know, is you park your vehicle, you get out, and you walk away, right? Because if you're in the car, that's considered standing, right? Not parking, okay? Nothing said no standing, right? And it's a freaking music venue. It's been there forever. And the cops that work in that neighborhood know what's up, right? These guys came, we're actively loading the damn car, and then the cop he drives up to us. And then they get out of the car, and they started talking shit. They're like, you didn't move, we're writing you a fucking ticket. And I'm like, what? Long story short, he never gave, I remember this because I was so upset. He writes us a ticket, and it was my buddy's brother, Officer Moreno. I remember his name because I let him know like that he was wrong, and then I knew better, right? And he said, you saw me at the end of the alley and you didn't move, right? Again, attitude, right? He perceived our attitude to be in a way that made him make a conscious decision that was in the wrong. And I'll tell you why it was in the wrong at the end. So his approach to us was already in a shitty way. So he got out of the car, he was hot. He explained that we saw him already and we were like disrespecting him and we didn't move our car and all this shit, right? And then he proceeded to write us a ticket. And so in that instance, I have every right to express my frustration.
Not on scene, dude. No way. That's a dumb thing to do.
Nope.
On scene. On scene, it's not a smart thing to do. Straight up.
Why? Because I could get killed and it could escalate?
100%. Like what I would say.
But that's not
what
okay.
I would say is, write me the ticket,
matter.
bitch. I'm gonna sue the fuck out of you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, but
Right, but
that's
just
what
like
I'm
you said,
saying.
but like just
why-
like you
but
said earlier, how a cop can't, think that everybody is going to, be complacent. Just like, there's bad cops. You can't think every cop is going to be a good cop.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I agree. But that's what I'm saying. Like, but we're talking about, you asked me about being compliant even at like low-level traffic stops. And like, oh no, I'm not getting out of the car, like that kind of stuff, right, Jeff? So I'm giving you an example.
Yeah. Dude, like always be compliant unless it's to the level of like
No,
a
but that's what
felony.
but that's what I'm saying, dude. I don't agree with that because if it's not justified, like we as citizens should be allowed to kind of like let them know like this is too much. So long story short, Officer Moreno wrote us a ticket.
Fuck you, Officer
And what I
Moreno.
told him was, I was like, why are you writing us a ticket? And he's like, well, you're parked in the alley. I'm like, we're standing. We're actively loading this vehicle. He's like, no, you're parked. And then I kind of tried to explain to him, dude, I used to be in the military, I know the fucking difference between whatever. And I said, you're wrong for writing us this ticket. And he's like, well, you should have moved. And he's like, you violated he said, you didn't move for me. And he said, you didn't listen to my command. And I said, you never gave me a command to execute. And now you're writing me a ticket. And that's when no bullshit, that's when I won that conversation. And he knew it. And his whole demeanor changed. So when he came out, he was all hot and shit. And you're saying like, oh, that's risky, right? Because it could have escalated. I could end up with whatever. I feel like we should have the right to
I
also be an active part of those situations, because what I did was I de-escalated the situation, even though I got a ticket, and because I was right, the judge threw it out anyway.
I would,
His
like-
ticket didn't stand.
I agree with your premise that yes, as citizens, we should have the right to argue with the police on scene. You're 100% correct. I 100% agree with what you just said. However, the reality is that if you disagree with the police on the scene, you are risking what happened to Tyree Nichols and all these people that got killed because they weren't compliant on scene. What I'm saying is, any interaction that I have with the police moving forward for the rest of my life is I don't fucking say anything. I comply with whatever they want. If they're asking me to do something illegal, I say, I don't give you consent to search. I don't want to give you my ID, but I'm doing so in threat of violence. And I say all these things, and I sue the living fuck out of them afterwards. People are afraid of lawsuits just as much as they are being punched in the face. Case in point, me and Patrick, that whole suit thing, right?
Yeah, facts.
We went to whatever store that was,
Express.
Men, right? And they wouldn't let us return the suit, right? Because there wasn't some weird tag on there. And what I told them, I was like, all right, so you don't have to return the suit. We'll take it. I'm going to sue the store, and I'm going to sue you personally, and I'm going to sue the manager of the store personally. I'm not being a dick. This is just how businesses are run. We didn't know about the tag, and you're telling us that there was supposed to be a tag. So what I'm going to argue is that the tag that you're alleging was supposed to be on the suit was never on there. And you didn't indicate to us that there was supposed to be a tag on the suit. So when I threatened to sue this cashier and the manager of the store that was there personally, as well as Express, they returned the suit. I'm telling you, man, people are afraid of lawsuits just as much. I guarantee you, Derek, if you said to that cop, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to sue the living fuck out of you for writing this ticket, for violating my fucking civil rights, I bet he would have thought twice about writing you the ticket 110%.
Well, but you're assuming that I even have the ability to sue here, that the laws
just the threat, just
here
the threat,
state,
just
right?
the threat of suing. I'm telling you, people back down.
Right, but I can't threaten to sue you for something that's not even like able to be sued for, right? If that makes sense, right?
You can absolutely,
outside
sue
of
the
that,
cop
outside of that.
for like wasting your time, 100%.
Two things. A, you're assuming, and not all lawyers are pro bono, right? So you're assuming.
I'm not
that
saying
everyone-
hire a lawyer. You could do it yourself.
But again, you're assuming everyone has either A, the resources to hire a lawyer, be able to find a pro bono lawyer, or do it themselves. That's just not true. That's just not the reality. So
We
the whole
100 like
suing thing,
this
you're
is
not wrong.
this is the United States of I'm gonna fucking sue you.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think it's fucking stupid, and I hate it. Because here's the thing. I shouldn't have to live in fear of the police, bro. I should have stayed in fucking Iraq with the fucking military state, right? I shouldn't have to live in fear of the police in my own community. I shouldn't have to assume that if I fucking try to challenge the reason why I'm being pulled over and get some fundamental understanding on why you're taking time out of my fucking day right now, right? That
If
you're gonna
more
possibly
people
kill me.
if more people sued them for doing shit like that, they would think twice about doing shit like that.
I just want to agree with
Well,
something
that
that
was
Derek was
something-
saying was
is
that
it
like
something that
nobody
they're
should
talking
have to
about,
live in fear
being able
of
to
the
be
police.
sued like for their pensions or something like that. I'm gonna look that up because that's one of the big things that like progressives are trying to make a reality where you can sue police for their actions.
And
but
you
it, like,
can. Right now you can.
no, but hold on, let me show you. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah,
get it.
it's called qualified immunity, right?
It's like qualified immunity. Taking
Yeah,
away
and
qualified
if you
immunity and shit like
and
that.
if you're a cop and you're acting
Mhm.
within the policies and within the
Yes.
use of force model, you cannot be sued based on the qualified. Like you as a citizen has to sue the actual police department. But if you can prove that they're violating your civil rights, which Derek in this case they did, you can sue. That cop doesn't have that qualified immunity in that case.
Immunity.
So you can sue that cop in that case. You probably still could. And I will help you do it if you want me to help you.
Officer Moreno.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
the thing
we're
was, I
fucking
didn't get
coming.
the ticket. Someone else got the ticket. I was just there to call him out.
Still, whoever that is, sue the fuck out of that officer. Sue any cop that wrongs you, and they will stop wronging people. because no one wants
Dude,
to pay money for
A
stupid
long
shit.
time ago,
Facts.
and this like a long time ago, I got pulled over. I literally got into my car, and I got a phone call as soon as I started driving. Like literally 2 car lengths away, I started driving. I got a phone call, so I pulled into the alley that was right there, stopped my car, and I'm on the phone. Bro, next thing I know, there's 2 fucking cops with guns pointed at my face. Get out of the fucking car, and I was like, what the fuck?
We have to
is
start
going
wrapping it
on?
up. That's fucked up. You should sue both those cops, Derek. 100%. If anyone
And know
fucks
what
with
they
you,
said?
Derek,
They
if
said hey, they told me what you said that they told you in Nevada or whatever. That, well, sorry, you didn't say this, but you mentioned your car.
yeah,
They told me that my vehicle matched the description of whatever car they were looking for, which I think was just like bullshit.
like I'm not buying that anymore. If that shit happens to me, I didn't sue those cops, which I fucking should have. If that shit happens to me again in the future, I'm 110% suing the living fuck
Bring that ass
out of
in here,
whoever
boy.
fucks with me or any one of my friends in the future. So Derek, that includes you. If anyone fucks with you, police department wise, I will help you sue the fuck out of them. 110%.
Oh, I'm down for
But
that.
we have to wrap
I'm
it
gonna
up
go out
though.
and do reckless shit now just to get interactive with the police. I'm just kidding.
Please don't. But I appreciate it, Derek. Thanks for coming on. This
Yeah.
wraps up, I think, podcast number 5.
Yeah, thanks,
Five?
Derek, for popping on, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll.
Yeah, man, it was nice to meet you, dude. I appreciate your time.
Hell yeah,
We
bro.
will definitely have you back on again, Derek. It was a pleasure having you on. And
Awesome.
yeah, that kind of wraps everything up. So thanks,
All
everyone.
right, I'll talk to you guys later. Y'all have a good evening.
Later,
Yeah, you
bro.
too, bro.
Later, peace.